There. Got it. Okay. It is a joy for me to be with you. One of my favorite places to come worship. I always feel so at home here and so enlivened by the space, but more importantly by the context, by the worship, by the people who gather here, and your strong commitments that's stated in your mission statement, your understanding of who you are and how you live that out. I'm grateful for you and for my friends here in this place. I want to bring you greetings from our regional staff, in particular from our new regional, I can still say new, I think, regional minister, Dr. Crystal Williams, who I understand is going to be with you at the end of June, is that right, to come and be in worship with you? I am so excited for this new era, for this new time. As I have jokingly said, it's kind of the end of the Rick and Carolyn show, and it's time for something new to happen. And I am just thrilled with her leadership and with the gifts she brings and with a new vision and hope for the Christian church in Indiana. I told her one day I was almost kind of jealous and thought maybe I wouldn't retire so I could be a part of all that kind of firsthand, but I'm that baby in Evansville is calling my name, so I'm going to be a part of that and support her from afar, but I do bring her greetings to you this day. Well, let's just say this text from Isaiah 35 had me at verse 3. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. I know a little something about feeble knees. After living with osteoarthritis in my knees for more than 15 years, I blame it on about 30-some years of playing softball. I don't know if that's right. Well, I finally had my first knee replacement surgery almost 7 weeks ago. Yeah, I'll say that now it's not as feeble as it was, yet it was not an easy place to get this far and still a way to go. It's taken advice, encouragement, a great surgical team, patience, a wonderful physical therapist, and a lot of determination. It's involved doing the physical therapy exercises twice a day, even on the hard days when I didn't exactly feel like doing them. Chapter 35 of Isaiah is a little like finding hope while living with feeble knees. Some scholars are not sure that this chapter is really in sequence with the writers and with the book. Some say it's more likely a part of what we call second Isaiah, a whole kind of another group of chapters. And some say maybe even written later than that. The poem seems to come too early in this part of Isaiah. It's kind of just dropped in there after a long narrative of death and destruction. It's seemingly out of place here. It's an unexpected word, a surprise that comes in the midst of destruction, and it's a word of refreshment to a weary world. As I pondered this text, some of the first verse, I don't know why this popped into my mind, but it kept playing and singing in my head, was the first verse of O Holy Night. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appears and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices. For yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, those knees again. Oh, hear the angel voices. An unexpected, or perhaps long expected, word of hope to a weary world and fatigued people. After chapter 34's description of environmental and social destruction, chapter 35 then pops in with an altogether different voice, one of transformation and possibilities. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and shouting. This comes as a refreshing word of hope to people. and to a world that desperately needed it. Isaiah dares to speak a word out of place, a word that has refused to wait until things improve. So who needs to hear this word of strength and courage? The text says, those who are of fearful heart. The more literal Hebrew translation of this phrase is, ones whose hearts are racing. That's some powerful, vivid bodily imagery. Because on some level or another, who among us doesn't have a racing heart? We can get pretty worked up about things these days. Listen to the news. Read your social media feed. Read the comment section. Talk to someone with whom you disagree. We can feel our fear and uncertainty right in our own bodies. We have feeble knees and aching hands, and we can sense when our blood pressure is rising. We can feel our stomachs turn to almost nausea. And so we overcompensate, maybe overeat, overreact, you name it, to deal with our stress. We feel all that anxiety in our bodies. And all of this could lead us to paralysis. It might make us want to throw in the towel and just give up, leading us to do nothing about all the brokenness and fear-mongering that surrounds us. Isaiah declares there is another way. There is a path to move toward the wholeness of creation and the wholeness that we can find in our own lives. In fact, that is God's deepest desire for creation. I don't know if you remember this word, but at the center of this passage's first verse is a word it just always grates me when I hear it. Vengeance. God's vengeance. It feels so strong and negative. And usually when I read through this text, I find myself moving past that word as quickly as possible. I don't want to think about it. But when I decide that I'm not going to understand this passage, that I don't attend to this word and why it holds such a prominent place. For this is the promise that purports to drive out fear. We are supposed to show the people that God is right here in this place, close enough to touch. And we are supposed to promise that vengeance will come. And I struggle to link that promise with the gospel good news. Biblical scholar Hendrik Peels has shown that the Hebrew, speak Hebrew, anybody? No. Okay, good. Nacham, the one translated by the NRSV in this text as vengeance, refers to retribution by a legitimate authority. In Isaiah 35:4 and similar texts, it has further emphasis of retribution that brings liberation to the oppressed. Freedom from a situation of need and the restoration of justice. Its meaning's closer then to what we might call restorative justice than vengeance. The word nacham is further modified and delineated in this verse by the appositive phrase Shmuel, Elohim, translated in the NRSV as terrible recompense. That's an artful rendering, but a more literal translation reveals a wider range of possible meanings for that phrase. The Hebrew word gemal often simply means dealing. It could also be translated response or benefit or payment. We might translate the phrase here as God's response or God's dealing. And so, together, we could say this: say to the people, God is here. Restorative justice is on its way. Hope now in God's dealing. Expect God's response. I like that a lot better. I don't know about you. Whether we think about the crisis our natural world is in across the globe, or like people dumping, trash everywhere, or the crisis between people of this earth and the crisis of our own lives that feel completely undone some days, we can stand with Isaiah in giving voice to the promise of God, and we can dwell in that hope. Yet we cannot do that passively. If we're going to dwell in hope and offer God's presence to our world, it will take action on our part. Fear and uncertainty can leave us paralyzed. So I'd say the alternative is this: bravery. You see, our hearts can also race in expectation of something good. It will take each of us engaging in whatever ways we can to move the needle in a more positive, God-desired direction. We have to care for the earth in very concrete ways. You can put solar panels on your roof. I still have in my mind a picture of Pastor Steve up there blessing it. I don't know what he was thinking. You can purchase products that are more than one use and thrown away. You can recycle, you can garden, reduce food waste, use reusable bags when shopping, reduce energy usage when possible. There's a myriad of ways for us as individuals, as a congregation, and as a community to make a difference, even by doing seemingly very small steps. We can also advocate for changes in the bigger systems around us. We can use our voices and our presence to encourage politicians, corporations, and leaders to address these issues. This is a reversal we don't have to wait for. It's one that we can enact every day. It is people like us, it is we ourselves who exercise muscles of faith and effort, who heal bodies as physicians or caregivers or donors. It is we who work toward ecological healing, toward recreation of healthy habitats in our yards, our churches, our town. It is we who sow order in chaos and hope in despairing hearts. In addition to the healing of creation, Isaiah 35 also addresses the healing of our lives. If we are brave, we have the power to initiate changes in ourselves. With God's help, we are transformed, empowered, and equipped to do the work of living witnesses to hope and possibility. We can engage our minds with things that are life-giving. We can encounter Scripture in new ways. We can go to a book study that challenges us and helps us think. We can practice spiritual daily gratitude. There are so many ways to work on our well-being that we can contribute then that same well-being to the world. Downey Avenue is in the midst of your stewardship focus. I think this passage has a great deal to say about stewardship. The obvious is caring about creation and about how we use our lives and energy. Maybe, perhaps the less obvious is that we are stewards of a vision. Isaiah proclaims that something different is possible. Fear does not need to rule us because God works in the business of healing and wholeness. We must steward our imaginations and boldly proclaim a vision that encompasses the health of the earth and of each of God's people. I really like, Skip, how you started out. I thought this fit perfectly, right? Imagine, and you're caretakers of that imagination, of something different, something bold, something that lives more fully into what God believes is possible. We are entrusted with this gift, and I believe that implies we are entrusted with helping to implement it. Yes, we might be overcome with uncertainty and fear, and yet I think we have to find the courage to live our lives in ways that proclaim God's goodness. Often that means looking to one another, I think, in a faith community, sometimes for encouragement. We can offer words of hope to those who are sinking into despair. We can sit alongside those who are deep in sorrow or overwrought with brokenness. We offer expressions of God's compassion to others because there will be a time when we are the very ones who will need to receive the same kindness from others. We are purveyors of hope that is both in us and far beyond us. We are stewards of the vision from God that wholeness in the world is possible. It is hard work. It can be discouraging work. It is our work. It is a word out of place because in the end, we have to believe that with God, indeed, every little thing will be all right.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. I woke up this morning on my horizon. 3 little birds were on my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melody blowing true. And they said, this message is you. They said, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Don't